Okay, good afternoon, people. It's me again. Talking about our financial structure. So, in the previous videos, we talked about how important your savings is and why you should have control over your expenses. Now, this will require you to do a little bit more work than what you usually do, which means that you have to keep records. So, whether you want to use a spreadsheet on your phone or your other devices, or even a pen and a paper, like I showed an example of what I used to do in those days. So, this pen and paper, this is November 2013 when I wrote my expenses and yeah, stuff like that. So you can use that if you want, but you can also use a spreadsheet on your phone for it so that it's portable. You can meet it anywhere. You can open it anywhere and make updates. Because it's important for you to track your expenses properly, because when it is properly tracked, you can tell when, for example, you are exceeding certain limits, right? And that is very important because what you don't know, you cannot change. So that's very important. And then, secondly, your savings, we talked about labeling them properly. So, if you want to buy a car, maybe in a few years' time, you should have a container for that, or you have a savings specific to that. Now, why is it important to have savings specifically? Because many of us have the notion that our savings is for a consumption, right? So you say, "Oh, I'm saving for the rainy day." Now, most of the time, when you become maybe you you finish your income for that month or your expense, you start thinking, "Oh, but I have some money in savings. I might as well flex with that." Some will say, nah, only one life day. That means it's only one life that you have. But the truth is that your savings is a no-go area for consumption. Every time you make the decision to draw out of your savings, it must be for a productive purpose, right? So it means it must be something that strategically moves you forward in your quest for a better condition in your life, right? So that means that it can be a course, maybe you want to add a new skill, or you want to add a new device to your work tools. It must be something that adds productive potential to your life, right? And after you have labeled it, there's one part of your savings that I mentioned, and I want to reiterate. It's important to have an emergency fund. Now, an emergency fund is usually 6 months of essential living expense. So, for example, every month, by the time you begin to make recordings of your expenses, you would have an idea of what your living expense, your essential living expense will be every month. Now, having a handle on that will help you to be able to plan in downtime. So, for example, let's say your monthly essential expenses 100,000 and you have 1 million in savings. What that means is that you can separate to a different account an emergency fund of 600,000, which is like 6 months worth of your essential expenses. Now, I mean essential. Essential means that those things that you cannot do without, whether you have an income or not. So, for example, feeding is essential, right? Basic hygiene stuff, grooming. You can't say because you lost your income you want to be looking like Tarzan, or be smelling like Iru. So you need as much as possible to set yourself up in such a way that even when you lose your income, you can still function to a large extent. And that will determine whether you would create a new source of income sooner or later. So that's very important. Having an emergency fund is very important. So I always recommend that if you already have a pool of savings, you can draw out your emergency fund from there. But if you don't have that already, you can start now, which means that you can start saving up to, which means the first variable you need to know is what is the essential expense for me every month. Once you're able to factor that out, once you know what that amount is, you can begin to save into a different account up to 6 months. Now, this emergency fund must never be diverted to something else, right? I always say that many people are financial terrorists in their home. You're saving for a shoe, you divert it into something else that has nothing to do with the shoe, and you wonder why things are rough for you. You're just being a rascal, a financial terrorist to yourself. So it's important for you to have the discipline to see through, because every time you set a goal or you have a dream and you achieve it, there's something it does to you as a person. There's a way it expands your heart. There's a way it makes you realize that there's possibilities. There's so many things I can do if I want it badly enough, right? And this is so important, because if you miss the opportunity to set yourself in the path of growth, you're going to most likely struggle all through life, right? I know a lot of people have been told, there's a breakthrough coming. Well, maybe the breakthrough is coming, but if you don't have a structure to take it, you're just going to be fetching that water into a basket, right? And that's why it's so important for everyone to have this financial structure we've been talking about. So we said that your budget is a very important component of a financial structure, and your budget is just your income minus your expenses minus your savings. Your expense, like we said, must not exceed 70% of your income, and your savings can be anything between 10%, 20%, even 30% of your income, but it must be consistent. So you can't say, I will save 2% today, I'll save 3% tomorrow. No, it has to be consistent. So if you say, I'm starting afresh, I'm starting new, I want to try and start with 5%. The more you do, the more you'll be able to do, right? So just start, whether it's 5%, whether it's 10%, start, and I can assure you that you will see the benefit sooner or later. So it's important for you to, like I said before, label your savings, because once you're able to do that, you will be attached to the purpose that savings is created for. So for example, I remember there was a time where I used to save I love shoes a lot and I love gadgets, so I was always saving for those two purposes. And there was a period I saved up to, I think, almost 2 years worth, and then I went through it financial tsunami and it was those savings that came to my rescue, because I could easily go there and draw. At that time I didn't need shoes, because I always got a lot of gifts as shoes from a lot of my mentees and students, and so I had no real need for shoes. And as for gadgets, I had people buy me the latest iPhones and all of that, so I really did not need much of that at that time. So I was able to take that money and put it back into my business and restart production, and it really helped and went a long way. And that is why since that period I've always sang it everywhere, that it's important for everybody to develop the culture of saving and purposeful saving as well, so that you don't just get woken up at night by a call from a friend asking you to lend them money to clear their car, and in your mind that is a very stupid request, because you bought a car, you already know you are going to need to clear it. So why do you want to put that burden on someone else, right? But we have friends like that, but you have to be able to decide if it's something you will do, and it should never be from your savings. It should be from your expense account. If there's no room for that, the answer should be no, and you should not feel guilty about it at all, right? So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.